So Kevin Stars, former diocesan director of prison ministry, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I've been looking forward to this. So you and I worked together. I was trying to do the math. I'm not a good math in my head guy. I was there for 10 years. So I probably call it like kind of the last 10 years of your run as director of prison ministry.
Yeah. I think when you came in, I had just become director, so I was in the building every day.
Yeah.
Whereas even though I was there 30 years, I never had an office there. So that was a whole change coming in. Yeah,
being in. Had to tie you to the desk.
Yeah, in the building. You know, I had to learn how to be in the building. Yeah.
But Kevin's from prison ministry, so you can lock him up. He's just gonna pop him and be gone. He'll be over the wall.
Yeah, right.
Right. The guards watching him. Security. We got a Kevin Stars breakout. So Kevin, since this is your first time on the podcast, I want the autobiography. I know little bits and pieces just from knowing you over the years.
Okay.
But give the people an introduction to Kevin Stars and who you are and where you're from and what made you the man you are today.
Yeah, definitely, yes. So when we talk about my journey, I always have to start with my parents. My dad was raised in New York City, New Jersey during the Depression. No dad. Mom ran a speakeasy, so was in World War II at 17, spaced out a year in the war because something really bad happened. So he grew up an angry street kid, you know. Met my mom, who was from Prescott, or Jerome in Arizona, grew up without a mom and no brothers or sisters, and just with her dad. So they met. And
where did they meet back east?
No,
or did
they met
in
in San Jose because my dad once my dad got out of the Army, probably 46 or 47, they met at San Jose State University. My dad still had no faith. He started hanging out at the Newman Center. Long story short, he came in, into the faith with the church, and met my mom. They got married, and they raised us in the Pasadena, Altadena area. And I always say this, before you knew it, they had 9 kids. It wasn't before you knew it, but there was 9 of us. And
where are you in the pecking order?
Carrie, Teresa, Kevin. So I'm the oldest. So there's 5 girls now and 5 boys. There's 10, and I'm the oldest boy. 2 older sisters. Yeah. So we were raised in the Pasadena area. Prayed the rosary every night. My dad was hardcore Catholic. He's a probation officer, East LA, South Central, and he was a tough guy, an angry guy, very angry just from but he really wasn't in touch with his anger, so he brought that anger on us, which made it really hard in the home. He loved us, he loved my mom, he loved God, he loved the church, but he had this. Everybody was afraid of him, even the boss, and he was that type of guy. So. But it was interesting in the Pasadena area, Altadena, where we were raised, it was mostly an African-American neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so we grew up more the minority. And so you just fall into that culture because you grow into it. That's what you know. Like I played Little League, and the whole Little League, I was the only white kid in the whole, but that's just what you know, and it's just normal to you. Yeah. So then when I was 13, we moved to the Indian reservation, Navajo reservation, with the in northern Arizona, and then we're still the minority. I mean, there are some white people up there, but we're still so.
What brought you guys to the Navajo reservation in Arizona?
Well, my dad wanted to be a deacon, and in the Catholic Church, the diaconate reemerged after Vatican II. It was dormant for like 500 years. And the Diocese of Gallup was one of the first dioceses to institute the diaconate. And I think he wanted us to get out of the city and, so he said, we're moving to, the reservation. And we did, and that was different. But, thinking back, even though my dad had this anger and he was hard to be around, when he would leave, everybody would be, okay, But I remember we'd pray the rosary every night, and he went through a spurt where he'd hold his hands out just to And I remember as a young boy, I was 8 or 9 years old, I would hold my hands out and it would burn back here, and I'd try to take the pain, So even though he was like that, there's a part of me that still really admired him.
Yeah.
So he was a man, he didn't play, so it was kind of that situation. My mom was very loving, for having 10 kids, she did well with us. And then anyway, we go to the res, and we go to St. Michael's Indian School. It's a Catholic school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Good experience, very small classes. Really liked it. And then we go to Winter Rock High School, which is like 900 people, a lot bigger school. And thank God I was really good in sports, track and football. So that kind of, and I loved it. So that kind of kept me semi-focused. But by the time I was a sophomore, I was smoking weed every day. Every day. And wasn't a drinker. There wasn't really other drugs around. I guess I was considered a functional user. I went to school every day, again, played football, ended up getting All-State my junior and senior year, but I had developed a daily weed habit. And so that went through all through high school, graduated in 78. Made in the 70s in northern Arizona, there was a Catholic things called search. There were retreats.
Okay.
And I made a search when I was a junior and a senior, and really liked it, had a powerful experience. But after a week it went away, but I guess it planted a seed deep down inside. So anyway, went to graduate in 78.
Did your dad end up a deacon?
Oh yeah,
because that's why you guys were there.
He was ordained.
So for Diocese of Gallup, which carves out that little corner of northern Arizona.
Yeah, and it was neat because he had a hogan, which is a Navajo old living place. It's like a log cabin. He had a church that was a hogan way out in the mountains, about an hour from our house for a while, and he'd take us up there, and it's very small, maybe 15. People that lived way out in the middle of nowhere, and he would do communion services, and he would visit, the sick. And so just watching him in that ministry still was a blessing, even though we had a lot of anger to work through and a lot of hurt, because, so anyway, but he was ordained one of the first class, after Vatican II. So went to Phoenix College in 1978. And to play football. And that was a culture shock for me. One is going to the city. Right. I had a little tiny trailer on 27th Avenue in Osborne, in a little dark trailer court right 2 miles from Phoenix College. And no air conditioning. My friends with the NAU, they were in a dorm, and I was in this little trailer by myself, this little dark trailer, roasting. But I was 19 years old. I didn't know any better. But I quit going to church, and it wasn't a conscious thing. I was just glad to be away from home. I was going to school, playing football, and smoking weed every day. And I was there for 3 years. The last year, I broke my arm my first year, so they call it you redshirted. And then so my last year there I started, which was big for me, just from my esteem. I got to play, and it kept me focused from just totally going wild, because you had to go to school, you had to take care of yourself. So I just couldn't wild out, and So long story short, went up to NAU, still not going to church. Wasn't against it, I just wasn't. Went to ASU just to finish up my degree, and I stumbled upon the Newman Center.
Okay.
Yeah, and I started going there, and I started volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club in Tempe.
Who was running the Newman Center back then?
The Dominicans.
Was it Dominican? Okay,
Father Albert. Yeah, and it was hard for me just being, say, like at ASU, even at the Newman Center, because I grew up always as a minority around African Americans, Navajos, and then I come to Arizona and there's all these white people, and I'm uncomfortable, and then I'm trying to go to church, and I'm not used to going to church, and I'm still getting high. So I was very quiet so I would just ease my way, trying to figure this faith thing out, trying to quit smoking weed. So I started volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club like 20 hours a week, and ended up getting Volunteer of the Year. They did put a little article on me in the Tempe paper, and I thought, if they really knew me, they would never write an article about me, because I go home, I get high every night, and I go, oh brother, this is, so anyway.
What do you remember what made you decide to volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club? Was that like you're trying to get yourself straightened out? You thought that would help, or was there?
Well, good question. So I was the third oldest, and I had a bunch of younger brothers and sisters, and I was really good at like doing stuff with them. I'd give them piggybacks at night, tell them stories, take them. I had a party in the house one night when my parents were gone. I felt really good. I locked them in the room and gave them donuts when I was in high school. So I really felt bad for them. For the next day, I took them on a picnic, in the mountain deserts of Arizona, and brought them food, and so I had this sense of trying to be a really good big brother and do stuff with them that they liked. And so I had that in me, working with kids that didn't know it. And then when I was at Phoenix College, there was a program called Vadio Youth Projects, and I was working like in the inner city. And long story short, I had a little part-time job there and worked in like South Central Phoenix with young inner city kids with basketball or baseball, and I put the baseball thing, baseball equipment on a 10-speed. And I'd ride like 4 miles to practice. I'm in college. It's a paying job for a little bit. And I wrecked on the railroad track a couple of times, got all tore up. And but that put a seed in me, another seed of I really liked it. The guy who ran Vadio Youth Projects kind of took me under his wing for a little bit and taught me some things, and he was passionate about it. And so then when I got to ASU, I thought, I wonder if they have something like that here. Saw at the Newman Center, I saw volunteers needed the Boys and Girls Club. So I went over there, and that's kind of with my background at the house and the Vadio Youth Projects. Yeah. It was a natural fit. Then the guy at the Boys and Girls Club, he was an active Catholic, but he was from New York, so he's kind of rough. But he really liked me, and he really kind of poured into me and told me, you're good at this, which I didn't know. And he said, hey, go see someone at ASU, they can help you with this grant. Or go see someone at ASU, they can help you here. And, so he really poured into me. So it was a good fit. And so I started going on retreats with the Newman Center, thinking this retreat's gonna help me quit smoking weed. And then I'd come back, I just couldn't shake it. And it was this intense desire to stop, but I just couldn't. And part of it, I think I was functional. I would smoke weed and go run 2 miles. I smoke weed, go lift weights. Wow. I smoke weed and go play basketball for 3 hours. So part of me like, I'm not that bad,
You kind of don't fit the profile.
Yeah, but so yeah. So anyway, so eventually I went on like my 5th retreat. It was a charismatic retreat where they pray over you. And it's interesting though, because of all these retreats and it not working. And I was watching all the Protestant preachers in the 80s on TV because I was trying hard, Oral Roberts and all these guys, because I really wanted to change. I really wanted God, but it just seemed like it wasn't working, it just really wasn't. So I went on, I told the God, I'm going to go on this retreat and I'm going to fast for a week from weed. I tried to quit. I could quit for a day and a half. But I'm going to fast for a week, God, and I'm going to go there and get the Holy Spirit. This is my theology. Probably already had the Holy Spirit, but didn't know, If I'm going to go there and get the Holy Spirit, I told God, I don't care if I feel it or not. I'm leaving with the Holy Spirit. That's what I told him. And I'm going to fast for a week. So God's like, okay. So I did. That's what, and something happened on that retreat. They prayed over me, and they had a little prophecy that you'll be spreading God's word. And you're not gonna believe this, Steve. Monday morning, I'm on Mill Avenue with Bible tracts. By myself with a leather jacket. It looked like I'm selling drugs. And people walk by, hey, Jesus loves you, Jesus loves you. A week later, I'm at the fair with Bible tracts, something happened to me. And I was so excited. I didn't know what to do with it. It was so kind of intense and joy. And long story short, that lasted for about 3 months. And then I started kind of nibbling back in the weed, but it wasn't the same. And from then on, my journey really started because I was, hit. And eventually I ended up at St. Timothy's in Mesa when the Life Teen program was going. Mm-hmm. And I joined the Life Teen core group, not because I wanted to help teenagers. I was working at the Boys and Girls Club. Eventually they hired me full time in Chandler.
Okay.
And that was my profession.
Okay.
I was working full time, but I knew I needed community. And I tried the young adult groups and it didn't work for me. Mm-hmm. I needed like a community that was on mission. Mm-hmm. In the Life Teen group, the core group was like 30 people. And in those days, it was intense. You were on mission and you had to meet all the time.
Like so, what years would that have been?
86, 87,
oh, okay.
88.
Yeah. So yeah, like the heyday.
Heyday.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, there was no other teen. One day, Father Dale said, "Hey, what do you guys think about expanding?" He said to the core group, "Oh yeah, we didn't know. Now it's Life Teen International." Yeah.
Right.
But for me, it was powerful because I was able to enter into the life of the church because I was always there and we were on mission. And I was around other people, young adults that were trying. And that was really, really powerful for me. And at that time, the Mass at St. Timothy's, I don't know if you would call it charismatic, but it was very outward expressive mm-hmm. in clapping mm-hmm. and singing and raising your hands. And that time I needed that because I was so excited about my faith. I needed to be able to raise my hands, and I needed to be able to clap, So it was a good fit for me, So, but this is interesting though, because the way I grew up around minorities my whole life, and then I'm working at the Boys and Girls Club in minority communities, mm-hmm. I still wasn't comfortable around the regular folk, So go to St. Timothy's and it's mostly Caucasian thing. So I learned to be comfortable around my own race, which may sound funny, but it was a big thing for me, And so God used that, I think, also for my spiritual growth, but my social and emotional growth, just to be at peace in my own skin and my own, So that was really powerful for me. I always wanted to get married, but I knew I needed a lot of healing. And I told the Lord, because I started to develop a prayer life, I said, I really need a prayer life. So I started to develop that, get up and pray, meditate on the scriptures. I knew I needed a men's group. I started a little men's group. And I told the Lord, I need healing. Because by then the weed was like a slow 6 or 7 year thing where it tapered off. Mm-hmm. But I knew I had issues because weed was just the medicine for the issues. And it had to do with a lot of hurt and from growing up with my dad. That's
what I was going to ask. Like, looking back on it, looking back on it now, but even looking back on it then, as you make this decision, I want to stop doing this. I want to get rid of weed. Took some doing, but there's grace in that too. Just like you said, you kind of said, I'm going to work on it, and God, if you can kind of meet me halfway and get me over the hill, then we can get this. But looking back at that, did you think of weed that way? As this is like sort of my escape from stuff that if the weed's not there, then I got to feel things and think about things I don't want to feel and think about. Was that like kind of a conscious thing, or like looking back, you're like, I think that's kind of what the whole weed thing was about? Was
I think at the time I didn't realize it. It just made me feel good. But once I stopped, I still saw these issues that I had as super insecure. People thought I was stuck up, but I was insecure. And I think when you have a good relationship with your dad, I think part of it builds a certain security.
Yeah.
You just do because you get that from him, even,
Right.
So anyway, so I noticed these things in me, the way I felt around people. And so the scriptures for me, sometimes they're just literal. And I said, Jesus, I notice you're a healer. I need healing from this stuff that's going on in here. And by then it wasn't the weed, it was But I didn't know what that meant, but I said, there's a scripture that says, you have not because you've asked not. I said, well, I'm going to ask. I need healing. And I noticed Jesus always asked people, what do you want? He could see they were blind, but he would ask them, what do you want? So I'm telling them, I need healing, Jesus. But I didn't really know what that looked like. Yeah. Part of me thought, being in the charismatic world, someone would pray over me and it'd all be okay. But I learned, but I intentionally asked for it all the time. And I learned little by little. He'd heal me through counseling, through prayer, through relationships, through reading, just through a lot of ways. And it's a lifelong journey of healing.
Yeah. That's
so at 66 years old, he's still healing me.
You're still telling him that you want that.
Yeah. But so that was a big part of just really healing intentionally, and wanting to be at peace with everybody, myself, So did Boys and Girls Club for 10 years professionally. I thought I was going to be a lifer, because a lot of people that are in that type of work, they're lifers. After 10 years, I just wanted to do something different. I wanted to use my faith in my work. And I did a little bit, but you can't, do too much.
Right.
So I quit and did my own ministry for a year, working with gang members, because I knew a lot of gang members from the club and stuff. And I wasn't married, I didn't have any bills, so I was able to do that for a year, and eventually I had to, find for work. I worked for the city in the housing projects for a year, city of Chandler, Chandler School District for a couple of years, alternative schools, but I was kind of stuck. And I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I'd beg him. I'd meet with men at St. Tim's. Here's my skills. You have any ideas? Then the guy I was working with brought a Catholic son in, and it said at-risk coordinator for at-risk youth for the diocese. And long story short, I went for it. I got the job. And right away, I got involved in prison work right away, because Adobe Mountain Juvenile Facility called us and said, there's no Catholic services here. And then so I started going there. So that brought me into the prison ministry, because I was in the Office of Youth and Young Adult for like 3 years.
Okay.
But I was brought into the prison work right away. And then I ended up being there 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I met my wife when I ended up being a director of Boys and Girls Club in Guadalupe. And that was a new program under the East Valley Boys and Girls Club. And we ran it just out of a school, the gym there. And ended up meeting my wife there. And we were friends for like 5 years. And she used to be Catholic, but she wasn't. Well, long story short, we got married. My dad married us. He was a deacon.
Oh, yeah.
So we did our formation at St. Tim's. Okay. We got married at St. Mary's in Chandler because it was available. And Mount Carmel let us use the facility for our celebration.
The tour of the diocese.
Yeah. And my wife and I got married. And she had 2 daughters, a sixth grader and a 8th grader, and Carla and Jamie. And I was challenged because now I moved in with 3 women. I was single at 36 years old. I'm single.
Blessed are you among women.
Yeah, blessed are you among women. And then now my wife and I would go to the Protestant church, and then 1 week in the Catholic church. And then the week we went to the Protestant church, I would still go to Mass. And so that was different. So just this new dynamic of being blessed among women. But it was good. We eventually, the girls got older and moved on, and we wanted to have our own son, and we did. God blessed us with Kevin Thomas. But my wife had 8 siblings. I had 10. So now we have Kevin Thomas, our baby. The girls have moved out, and we think we can't have a son by himself. That's crazy. So we adopted Eric and Michelle, and they were 4 and 5, and
wow.
they were drug babies from Maricopa County, and so now we had our own new little family. Michelle 5, Eric 4, and Kevin Thomas 4, and so we started new, and it was a challenge having kids that were adopted with the issues, and but we grew into it, and somewhat we'll celebrate 30 years of marriage this December.
Wow.
So that's kind of the journey,
Wow.
you know.
There's a lot in there. So I want to dive into the prison ministry stuff, but
Okay.
Tell me too about just, so, you know, your family moving from California to the reservation. You know, you came down into the city, but like you said, you know, you had a rough relationship with your dad. Like how does that story kind of continue through coming down to the city, and then, you know, you're an adult? Like, did you reconcile with him? Is it something that you and he had a chance to talk? Is he still?
No, he passed. So that's a great question. So they lived in Prescott, so we'd go visit them back and forth. And it was, you know, you forgive him and then you see him do something again, treat my mom rough or something, and it brings up stuff. So you're still kind of having to continue to ask God to help me forgive this man. But God really blessed me with the idea that I loved the way he was. I loved the way he loved God. He loved the poor. He was passionate about his faith. And I loved that. And I said, I want to be like that, but I don't want to be like this. So I was able, God gave me the gift to see this is not good about him. I don't want to be like that, but this is really good. And sometimes people can't do that. They throw the baby out with the bathwater just because of their wounds.
Right.
And so that, so yeah, we reconciled. One time I went up to talk to him about my sisters. I felt like he needed to apologize to my sisters. So I'm 45 years old, driving up to face the dragon, you know, which I wasn't good at. You know, part of my woundedness was avoiding stuff.
Face the dragon.
Yeah, so I'm going to go up and say, how come you haven't apologized to us? So I go up and I say, I want to talk to you. You know, he's like, and my dad loved confrontation. When Mormons would come in, oh, come on in, Mormons. They tried to leave an hour later. They went, you're not leaving. Joyce, give him some more coffee. So he loved confrontation. So he said, oh, yeah. In his mind, you going to be a man now, boy? You know, what do you want to talk? You know, I said, well, haven't you apologized to my sisters? For what? You know, so so it went nowhere. The only thing where it went was I had a little courage to try to face the dragon. So anyway, long story short, in my heart, you know, and he passed away like in, I don't know, a good 20 years ago. But I was able to be at his side. I was singing Amazing Grace, you know, and just some things. And I found out he passed when I was coming from Florence prison doing a visit. And it was almost like providential. He had done prison ministry, worked with the poor, you know. So, but it's interesting. I had been praying for healing for years. So I thought we were good. I forgave him. I thank God I had a dad. I got the good from him, the bad. And about a month after he died, I had a dream. In the dream, I was cussing him out. I mean, F-bombs. I mean, then I wake up crying, what the heck, my dad's dead. We reconciled. What? So next month I had a dream, same different scenario, but I'm cussing him out. I mean, just awful. Wake up, cheers. So I call my brothers and sisters. Are you guys having dreams about daddy? You know, no. Had 12 months, a dream every month for 12 months. In every dream, I'm cussing him out. It's a different scenario, but I mean, just letting him, in what I would never have done that because I was scared of him. So I'm talking to God. And one thing in prison ministry, the way I do it, I share a lot, you know, about myself, and I intertwine it with the Gospels. So, you know, I kind of mentioned it to the guys, and I'm trying to process, God, what is this? What's going on? So finally, the dream stopped, and I had just a neutral dream. I saw him walking down the street, and, hey, Dad, what are you doing? I thought you were dead, you know. So I said, God, what's going on? And the Lord let me know really easy. You've been praying for healing, right? Yeah. He says, just because your dad was dead, you have some leftover anger, you really do, but it's buried. And the way God works with me, he uses humor too. He really does. So he's like, did we get it out? I was like, oh yeah, we got it out. I was dropping F-bombs on him, you know. But that was part of my healing.
Wow.
And it didn't fix everything, but it really was, you know. So, and another time, I'm driving down, my dad's dead. I'm driving down. I used to love to go to visit my guys in prison across the street. You got to get up like 3 a.m, get your coffee, get the car. It's quiet. You're driving down. I was driving down to Douglas. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's dark. I'm between here and Tucson. And I go, it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't be driving down here. Because, he brought me up in the faith. He did this type of work. And it just out of nowhere, it just hit me. And out of nowhere, tears of gratitude at 3 a.m. just came down. It just hit me, for that my dad. And that just came. Just like the dreams came, that came. But that was just gratitude. So God met me in some healing you just don't know. It's just, but some things were very just there. And so that helped.
Yeah.
And I kind of share that because I know a lot of people have parent wounds, father wounds, mother wounds. Your dad wasn't there, And with the guys in the prison and stuff, I was able to kind of share. Them father wounds are deep. They just don't go away. So that helped me carry that to see if I had this father wound, that would help me,
Yeah, I imagine you probably run into a few guys with father wounds in prison ministry.
And another thing that helped me, this is kind of random. So I have a friend, I'm in Phoenix College, and as her house, we were just friends, and her uncle's gonna give me a ride home. And I'm 19 years old, I'm not in the middle of wanting to change. And he's an older guy, and I thought, wow, maybe he's gonna talk to me. Like, how you doing, son? Just out of nowhere, it came to me. So I was like, okay. So we're driving, he says, you wanna go get a drink, at a bar? Well, sure. So, okay, he's gonna talk to me at the bar. Like, again, how you doing, son? So I just had this, and again, I'm not in the middle of trying to change or anything, it's my early years. So we go to the bar, he buys a beer, and he sits there all quietly, doesn't say a word, and I have my beer, he has his beer. You ready to go? Yeah. So he takes me home like he said he would, But I had this deep desire for an older man to talk to me.
Yeah.
So I remember it. And again, I wasn't in that place where so I thought, if that's in me, that's got to be in almost every guy that has a wound. Yeah. So that helped me in my ministry to say, you know what, that's in him, that's in him. So let me be that man, at least, how you doing, son? And that kind of helped drive me because I didn't have that relationship with my dad. And I thought every man has that desire to have an older man take interest in him. So that helped me. To this day, it helps me when I see somebody, give him that attention.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of my journey with my dad, father, family, and it's ongoing. It's ongoing,
Of course. Yeah, for all of us. You knew Ryan Hanning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you worked when he was done. So there's a phrase he uses. I'd never heard it somewhere. I'd never heard it before, and so I told him, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna steal that phrase, and I'm gonna give you credit for 3 years, and I'm gonna stop giving him what people think. I keep giving him credit. That was like 10 years ago. But he talks about just what you've been describing, all this, your life, the journey, the ups and downs, the trials, the good stuff, the bad stuff. He just said it's a conspiracy of grace, which I thought was just such a cool phrase, right? Like it's a conspiracy of grace. God's in all that stuff. Like you said it perfectly. You don't even see it. You don't know it all the time. Sometimes you're begging for it. Sometimes you do see it, like you recognize he showed up right then.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, this conspiracy of grace is just you look back and you're like, and I would never have written that script.
Yeah.
I would have written out a lot of the bad stuff. I would have made it a lot easier. I would have, leveled the road. But you just realize, it's in the hands of Providence the whole time. And he does stuff with all that stuff. Like there's that conspiracy of grace. So you come to the Diocese of Phoenix, the Office of Youth and Young Adult, and you're the at-risk youth coordinator, which puts you in prison ministry. Had you done prison ministry? Like, had you gone with your dad to prison ministry? What was? Because for most of us, like, I've never walked into a prison.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that's like. You see movies. That's probably about as close as most people get. So you do this for 30 years. Yeah. What was it like at first? Was there like did you feel pretty quickly like?
Yeah. Well, let me give you a little history how that developed.
Yeah.
It'll help answer your question. Well, first of all, being in the Boys and Girls Clubs in South Chandler and Guadalupe for years, you're around, quote, gang members and kids like that. Then eventually they go to prison. So you're around we've had mini riots all the time at the clubs, you know, so you're around that type of environment. So you're comfortable, or I was comfortable with that, even though I hadn't been in it, you know, and I really liked those guys. I can't even take credit. I liked them, and they knew that I liked, you know, so I had this relationship with them. And then years later, I seen a lot of all them guys in prison so from the clubs. That's another, you know.
Hey, I remember you.
You know, so I was really, so when I got in, Adobe Mountain School asked me to go up there and start doing Catholic services. Right away, I started going there, and I'm like, and I hadn't been in a prison, and you know, it's a juvenile facility, and I'm like, so you know, you got 30 kids that come to the service, and I'm like, oh, this is like the club, you know, it's like Guadalupe, it's like Chandler, it's all the homies, you know, and I like the homies, you know, so I'm comfortable, you know, and then they sense that I'm comfortable, and then I start breaking open the gospel, and one thing that God gave me the gift of is explaining it how you could understand it. I mean, understand it, and don't assume that he knows Peter. Like, Peter, my cousin's Peter, you know, you know. So really just breaking it down, and God gave me the gift to do that, and so right away I was super comfortable. And let me talk about conspiracies of grace, and then so I started going there, and then Father John Arthur, who was a Jesuit, went to Brophy. He's staying at St. Pius, which is right south central Phoenix, right? It's kind of by the diocese, a little mission parish. He's staying there because he doesn't know if he's going to be a priest anymore. Bishop O'Brien, God rest his soul, at the time, and the Jesuits said, stay there for a year, pray and discern, and just help out maybe at a parish, a little prison ministry or something. So he comes to me. Now, I don't know if you remember Colombo. Colombo, people thought Colombo was dumb. He was kind of disshuffled, and eventually he got him, you know. So here comes Father John. I want to volunteer for prison ministry. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's kind of, you know, you know,
eat him
a little disshuffled, you know. So and he had a bike at the time because he was living a poor life. And his parents were very wealthy, so wanted to live a simple life. So I had a truck on lease, little Nissan truck. So he would take his bike, and he couldn't put it in my truck, so he'd scratch the truck. You know, oh my gosh, who is this guy? I guess you can help me. So we're driving up to Adobe every week, and little by little, I thought, he's really smart. He speaks perfect Spanish. And you know, we drive up, and every time, his mind's always clicking. Kind of like Colombo, you know. And he said, Kevin, the kids really like when you preach. So at Mass, you preach. What priest does that, you know? So little by little, I thought, after 2 months, I said, oh my gosh, I have found a gem. And at first I thought I was trying to get rid of him, you know? So that eventually, he's right there in the hood where these kids from Adobe are. So I said, hey, Father, why don't we start like a once a week little after school thing? Because the kids are getting out. He goes, oh, that's a good idea. Because he was always like, ch-ch-ch. So we got the word out, and about 7 or 8 little guys showed up. They're like 10 years, and they were like the brothers of these guys. And at the time we didn't know, but they were active gang members living in drug houses. Later they tell us we'd hide our guns in the bushes, you know, and then we would come to St. Pius.
Wow.
And they came, we were just like chill, hey, let's play basketball, let's talk. And we'd always feed them. Father would do La Canastas across the street. Father had the credit card, so he'd go get burritos. So we started having that little 8 to 10 people, you know. So long story short, we're doing that. I'm going to Adobe. And then this kid tells me, hey, can you call my pastor? Sure. So I call this pastor, and it's this lady and her husband. It's an evangelical ministry just off of 19th Avenue in Van Buren. So they said, well, let's meet. So I tell them with the diocese, we meet for coffee. And later they did an article on her. They called her the Mother Teresa of Phoenix. So they worked with the poor. They really liked that I was Catholic. In fact, later they used a lot of Catholic readings. Their staff got taught about St. Francis and Mother Teresa and Teresa of Avila. So they really liked me because I fit within. So they kind of embraced me. They were down the street, so they'd ask me to do different things. Well, the DeVos family, who owns Orlando Magic, was doing a program where they'd pick 12 people in the city and they would train you for 2 years, people that worked with like the urban youth, and they would train you for 2 years. So you had a cohort for 12 people for 2 years, and you did all the study, and then there's 5 other cities across the country that did it. Then you would have 2 national conferences. Well, long story short, I was the first Catholic invited to be in that cohort. So long story short, we got close. It was good. Well, one of my guys, he ran a thing called Match Point. It was a small at-risk youth mentoring, kind of like Valley Big Brothers, Big Sisters, but for at-risk youth.
Here in Phoenix?
Okay. And we got close because he was the director. So I said, now by then we have that little group of 8 guys that come. We would drop them off at the house. We saw they literally lived with everyone in the house, the adults were drug addicts and people on the street selling. So we drop them off. So we saw their situation. So anyway, so I said, hey, Bill, can I get a couple of mentors and run them through your training program? Because they had a really good training program. Then if you're a mentor, they would have all these neat events you can take your kids to. He goes, yeah. And I just said that randomly. I didn't even have a big thought. So I better call some Catholic churches so I called 10 Catholic churches, said, can I speak after communion for mentors? I got 10 yeses.
Wow.
A few years later, I called 10, I got 10 no's.
I was just going to say, that's a miracle.
No, it was. Yeah,
itself.
it was just this season. Long story short, I within a couple of months, I hit all these churches up. And once I wittied everybody, I'd go back in the middle of the week. And I said, okay, Bill, I got 40 people are ready to mentor. He's like, what? Our program only has like 70. He goes, you need a mentor coordinator to coordinate these, He goes, find yourself one and we'll pay him. I go, wait a minute, Bill. A Protestant program is going to pay for a Catholic staff? He goes, yeah. Oh, wow. My goodness. So, and we're already in the hood, but so all of a sudden we had these 40 mentors, and my wife was one of them, and we're just working with the guys because, they're, 10, 12, 13 years old. So now we get 40 mentors under this umbrella of Match Point, and now everybody in our little hood gets a mentor. And they have to meet with you every week, the mentor, and so now girls get mentors, their sisters get to be, So our program went from 6 or 7 guys to 40 people that are intensely, and then eventually people start going to prison. It just does. No matter how you mentor, people got killed and shot, and that's kind of the whole another story. So and then we started, so-and-so's locked up. I'll go visit him. Because Father John got me a badge to the adult county jail. So we started visiting the homies in the hood that are getting locked up. So we get more credibility. So we're getting used to getting in the jails. Hey, I saw your cousin today. What do you mean? Oh, I went and visit him. For real? Yeah, he said, what's up? My early years, I snuck a big carne asada burrito in the prison, in the youth prison. Stunk up the whole place. I was got to get caught. I would never do that now, ever. So you're young, it's all new to you. Oh, let me go bring Richard a carne asada burrito. I put it in my sock, Some years later, my wife, we're going to see kids that are up for adult charges. They call them the pup tents. My wife makes a whole bunch of tamales, and we go in. The guard says, "You can't bring those in. You can't. It's contraband." And then we're like, it's Christmas time. We're like, how about if we give you some? We'll give you food. He goes, okay. So the guard says, okay. So we go in, do our thing, give the guard some tamales, Again, that was the early years.
The currency.
Now I would never do that, Steve, ever. But that brought my wife in the ministry.
Right.
Because she started mentoring. And where we were at 7th Avenue and Buckeye, there was a heavily black population, West Side City gang, and then our guys And they're all mixed together. So it's super violent, a lot of shootings. And my wife would go there every like Wednesday night to mentor her girl. And it just opened up our ministry. Deacon Peter Murphy, eventually they put me under Deacon Peter Murphy.
Yep.
And to me, he's like this saint. He doesn't think so, but I would say, hey, Peter, I got an idea. He's like, oh, what, Kevin?
You're not going to bring a burrito into the prison in your sock again.
Yeah, so Deacon, okay, write it up and we'll send it upstairs. So Deacon Murphy started getting us funds. We would take them to all these kids to California every year, to the beach, to Disneyland, to Magic Mountain. And then he did it so we can get to Life Teen Camp at Tipiak and do retreats. So he really helped us expand by just expanding our budget to do a lot more with these and involve a lot more people. And then we got parishes involved to sponsor. St. Patrick's ended up being really good for us. Holy Spirit, St. Francis Xavier sponsoring families for Christmas. So we're able to expand that, and eventually everyone goes to prison. They just do, because even though we're doing all that, it's just kids being raised in drug homes.
Yeah. And
just shootings and killings. We had car washes and the phone would ring at night, and my wife and I have to rush off to a place where one of our kids got shot. They're bringing him out in a body bag. My wife's laying in the dirt with Nina, her mentee. She's pregnant, 15 years old, 9 months pregnant. Sylvia's laying in the dirt praying for her. She's screaming as they bring Lupito out in a body bag. Mikey's sitting there all blood. And we had situations like that we were just brought into, but my wife was there with me and the other mentors. And then we just followed them as they got older into prison, and and then eventually when they gave me to Deacon Murphy, they just transferred me over. Then I started going to all the prisons and jails. So it was just a natural flow from Adobe to visiting the county jails to the prison. So it was never like, oh my gosh. And again, it was just, I was so comfortable with the homies that it was just like, so many times at prison when I was there, I thought, I'd rather not be here. If I could be in Hawaii or here, I want to be here. It was just this gift that I felt so connected to the guys. You felt their pain, and you just wanted to bring them hope, and you were able to bring them hope. And there was days when I would leave in the prison, they were so hurt and so sad, certain days that you would just leave sad. But for the most part, many days they're so glad to see you, they're hyper. But there was a mix of both. And learning to work with the chaplains are there full time, then getting volunteers and bringing them in, and little by little expand it, and you had to learn how to kind of navigate all of that.
So Kevin, are there people that you're in touch with who went through the prison system, got out, and turned their lives around?
Yeah.
Just listen to you. I mean, give the background to all this. One of the things that just kind of popped in my head, which is sort of obvious, but just the reality is, for a lot of these people, then you were actually part of their prison experience.
Oh yeah.
So these are people that get locked up. They come from whatever situation it is they came from.
Yeah.
And so prison is prison. It's going to be what it is.
Yeah.
But you're part of that chapter. You're part of that piece of their life.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if you don't obviously have to say names specifically or anything, but what are some of the relationships that you made with people who are in prison that that have continued, where you've seen them come out and it did them some good. It changed things. They were able to turn things around.
Yeah, that's a good question. And now that I'm older and been in it 30 years, so the guys that were 15 now are 45.
Yeah.
Give or take a little. And a lot of them now are doing really well. They have, some of them have their own little businesses. They're raising their kids. Now life is hard because you grew up with a lot of trauma, and now you're doing well, but that trauma's still in you. Mm-hmm. So, and just watching them as 40-year-olds navigate and do well. They own homes, and they call me and they're checking on me, and Kev, it's gonna be okay. Because I whine to them, and I know who's telling me it's gonna be okay. He was in the hole for 8 years.
Yeah.
So when he tells me it's gonna be okay, I gotta listen. But they're at that point now where, but in myself and our volunteers, we're just part of their journey. We've never said, "Oh, that's our success story." No, we just happen to be part of their journey. And to encourage them, love them along the way, find them again in another prison in Kingman, and I'll show up and say, "How'd you find me?" "Yeah, I'll find you, boy," But now seeing them years later, there's most of them now are it's past them, but the effects of just growing up in trauma is still with them, and it's hard. We had somebody come to our house last night, my wife and I, and they're trying to navigate a relationship. They're 40 years old, and it just breaks your heart because they were both male and female raised with so much trauma, and now they're trying to live normal lives, and and everybody they knew was raised in trauma, so they don't have any good examples. Their parents were drug addicts, their brothers and sisters were drug addicts, gangsters, everybody's in and out of prison. Now you're just going to work every day and trying to raise a family. It's hard for them.
Yeah.
It's hard, So we just try to support them. But I will say this, one thing that really touched me was watching the volunteers, because once I became director, I dealt more, anyway, people come and say, "I want to go to prison, but I don't know how." And that's because we had 100, I'm not with the diocese anymore, but hundreds of volunteers. So we'd have to interview them to make sure they were of sound mind, and it really touched me, and it caught me by surprise how encouraged I was by this parishioner at St. Anne's that's 50 years old, and because of the gospel, they want to go to prison, and they don't know nothing about prison. And just watching them go through the process in the 4 months to get in, and just watching them then for years enter into it, and you just go, wow. And that really helped me as a Catholic with the life of the parish. They heard that at Mass for years, and now they want to go. And so the volunteers really helped me be encouraged by their journey of wanting to give back. Man.
What are, so I'm thinking there's a couple family members on my dad's side that spent time in prison, but I think my dad went and visited them. We never did, so they were kind of away. Yeah. And part of it, I think, was sort of a concern about what we'd be exposed to as kids. Part of it was probably from the relative who was in prison, maybe not wanting them to be seen there by the kids. But anyway, it was kind of this sense of like, well, when they're in there, in a way, they're kind of like dead to us, So it wasn't ever said that way necessarily, but that's kind of the impression. For someone who thinks, I know there's prisons and it's full of people, and I'm sure some of them had tough situations or whatever, but I think for a lot of people, it's also like, but if you're there, there's a reason you're there, and you made choices and you did things and whatever. In your experience, what are some of the, I don't know if misperceptions is the way I want to say, maybe that, just like kind of some of the common misperceptions that people who have never been in prison ministry, who've never seen where a lot of those people come from and the backgrounds that they were raised in. What are kind of some of the common misperceptions about the prison population, about people who are in prison?
I'll just shotgun. Well, one of it is just being in the neighborhood, that we were in relationships. All of a sudden to walk down a block and go, he's locked up, next house, he's locked up, next house, he's locked up. Oh, he's getting out, and this is just in the neighborhood. In all these houses, people go to prison. And I never even though I was doing it for a long time, never really got used to that. Wow, that's just part of this barrio's reality. People go to prison. And of course there's others that, do well, but it's just so consistent. So then, but you just see it breeds, lot of no dads, so just kids are defend for themselves. The adults are on drugs, or many of them, a lot of abuse and gangs and violence. And so, yeah. And then you have the machismo, hey, I want to go to prison because once I get out, I go back to the hood and I got stripes. So part of you wants to go to prison. Like, you want to go to ASU? Well, we want to go to prison. Because I see the big homies come out and they're swelled up and, damn, I want to be like you.
So it's almost like a rite of passage.
Yeah, rite of passage. And that's for every single person, but there's something like that, But then with us, people that we see that come to church, they're trying to change. So that's just our little reality. And you just see guys that, Jesus said, I was in prison and you visited me. He didn't say, it's kind of like visiting me. He says, no, you visited me. So somehow there's this sacramental, mysterious reality when you go in and guys come to church because they're trying to some degree, or even if they just want to get out, to come just to get out of their cell, but they're still, and they would tell, hey, I just came to get out of my cell, but man, I got touched. And they start coming and things happen. You see just beautiful men. Yeah, and a lot of them will tell you, I need to be here. I need to be here. And some will say, what I got charged for, I didn't do. But I did a whole bunch of other stuff. So it kind of evened out. So I needed to be here. And one of our guys, Cricket.
So those guys are saying, I needed to be in prison.
No, I need to be here because if I wasn't here, and I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of my guys, if I wasn't here, I'd been dead. Because I was out running amok, shooting, doping and shooting. And if this slowed me down to stop me, and now, But then when you, like us, you get to visit them, and there's different levels of prison ministry. You go do a service, and you talk to them, you see them feeling it, you're able to chat a little bit. But then when you start visiting them one-on-one, that's a whole nother level. It's like a priest and a parishioner. Now also you start meeting your parishioners one-on-one, you start to hear their story and their struggles, and then for us, and then you see them when they get out, and then you visit their families, so that's another level, and you just see just beautiful people, man, that are trying and have made mistakes, and it's hard. They've been through trauma, and you just like, and for me, Father Greg Boyles helped me. He's a Jesuit that does a lot of work, Homeboy Industries. He's, besides his...
I've heard of him.
Yeah. Part of his, he writes books, and his experience are my experiences, our experiences, but he was really good at words. And I would have these thoughts in here that I didn't have words for them. And one of my thoughts was, I would admire our people. Because all that they had to navigate, all the trauma, all the death, all the just awful stuff that you would write a book and you wouldn't believe it. It was just their life. And I was in awe of them. Like, how do you get up and still smile? You see me and you give, and you can encourage me. How in the world, And he said he wrote a comment in his book, instead of judging the poor, and how they handle their situation, we hold them in admiration. So I was able to, that's how I feel. I admire how they navigate just awful situations. We go in, we're the good guys. We go in, do our stuff, they like us, and we get to leave. And they're there. One of our guys was in the hole for eight years. In the hole for 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And now he's out. He calls me twice a week, checks on me. His name's Cricket, And there's other guys like that. And you just hold them in admiration. So now as adults, they're able to say, Kev, come on, man. Pick your head up. And everything they've been through, you're like, you're right.
Believe me, Kevin, it can get worse.
Yeah. So you see the brokenness of humanity. You see the brokenness of our poverty and systems where whole neighborhoods are locked up, literally. And, you know, yeah, they did this, and this, but they start stealing cars at 9, 10 years old, you know, and doing stuff that you would think unfathomable at that age, but it's just, but then, see, I worked in Chandler, then I worked in Guadalupe with the boys and girls, then I worked in Phoenix, and it's the same. In South Chandler, is this little barrio, these little hoods, and eventually all the guys get locked up. Or not all, but, you know, like a high percentage of them. You know, and then in Guadalupe, you know, eventually a high percentage of them, they're all locked up. None of the girls go. 90% of people locked up are men. You know, the girls get pregnant. Again, not all of them. There's some great stories, but I mean, just a higher percent.
Yeah.
And then Phoenix, we're in this neighborhood we worked at, same thing. Locked up, you know. And you just see, it's a pattern of these inner city neighborhoods, you know, that...
Do you see anything, have you seen anything in doing it for 30 years that breaks the pattern, can break the pattern, break the cycle? Or is it kind of always just trying to sort of triage it on the tail end?
Well, really, all I know is people connecting with people, you know, schools, churches, the ministry we did, you know, somehow people being with people, you know. We sent one of our guys to Boys Town in Nebraska. Father Flanagan started it. Yeah. You know, we sent 2 of our guys there, 2 years, and they have these homes with a married couple that has 8 kids, and it's amazing. We'd watch them play football, and eventually 2 years later, I get a call. They were tired of being there, so they stole the car to come back to Arizona, and they're in the county jail in Nebraska. You know, yeah, it was another story. Well, long story short, one of my guys now, he goes back to visit that married couple. That was his house parents, you know, for 2 years, you know, and when their son died, and they called him and asked him, "Can you come be with us for a while?"
Wow.
Can you be there for us? So he's been back 2 or 3 times, you know, now as a 40-year-old man, when he was there as a 16-year-old kid. So to answer your question is somehow bringing people together, and there's no perfect program. Well, we started, Match Point helped us get these people. Matter of fact, I met with Bill yesterday, the guy that gave us the position. I said, let me tell you what you did. I said, Angelica, who was mentored at 15, she's now 30-something years old. She has 5 kids that aren't hers. Her sister was a drug addict. So she's raising those 5 kids. It's very stressful. Well, her mentor through the program, they're now adult friends. Her mentor's retired in Payson. And guess what Angelica does 4 or 5 times a year? She goes to Payson for a reprieve to be with Penny, because they're now adult friends. And that started 30 years ago when you gave us this position. My wife and her mentee, Nina, they're adult friends. We have a little space up, family members. We got a little cabin up in Heber, a bunch of us. And Nina was up there with her 5 kids last week. And the boys were practicing football because they're football players, and their camp got canceled, so they came up to the cabin and they used Heber High School field to do their own little camp. But that relationship is now an adult relationship, Nina and Sylvia, 25 years later. But it started with Bill saying, here. So it's somehow trying to get people to connect with people and walk with them. You know, and it's hard to walk with people like that. Sylvia's mentoring Nina, and Nina says, "Hey, Sylvia, I'm not gonna be around for a little while. I need to start slinging again, selling drugs." And she's like 16, because my baby's gonna have a party, and he's gonna be 2. So I'm just letting you know, you know. And Sylvia had to, okay, you know.
Wow.
So just walking through the good, the bad, the ugly, and you know, and so. Bringing people with people to journey, and really it's a journey. It's a long journey, you know. So somehow working with people to bring people with people.
How has it changed you doing that?
Man.
I mean, I asked that because, I mean, of course, you being in that ministry for all those years, you had an opportunity to touch a lot of people, change a lot of people, but of course it's going to change you too.
It's humbled me. It's just humbled me to see that, man, God, Jesus, what he says is real. That, like I said, there was a saying by one of our guys, some training, grace is like water. It pools up in low places. Like water will find a low place and pool up, anywhere, in a stream, a lake in your, He says, grace is like water. It pulls, and it's true, because in a prison, it's a low place. The body of the hood's a low place. But when you're in there for a year and you see some powerful grace of God working in forgiveness, love, passion, and you're like, wow. So it's just humbled me. Is God still working? It excites. Gave me an excitement that there is hope. One of our guys, I didn't even know him. He writes a letter, call my mom, and I can't always get this random letter from prison, so I call his mom. It's just I can't always answer everything, and she goes, "Let me tell you the story of my son." Lifelong drug addict, in and out of prison. He's 45 years old. Good artist. We have a great relationship, but he has nothing to do with God. And he says, can you paint me a picture of the Virgin Mary? He says, yeah, I will, Mom. So he's painted his mother picture of the Virgin Mary, in prison most of his life. And just when he's working on the eyes, he's finishing it up, the eyes get him from his own painting. And he has a conversion. That was the start of it. So eventually, he's asking his mom to send him books, and finally, Fernando, what's going on? And she tells him, and he ended up being in a unit that I was doing services at Lewis Prison. So the next week, his mom tells him, hey, long story short, we built this relationship, Fernando. He painted pictures for us in a fundraiser. His mom came down to Phoenix from Sacramento to be a guest speaker at some of our fundraisers, but God used his own talent. Mary, I thought Mary's at it again, just like she was in Mexico.
When she gets it, you're got.
And so just me seeing that and being involved and go, wow. I just felt like, why did we get to experience this and know this, And so just seeing God's activity in the prisons, and conversions and, just being around that, it just humbles you. And all you can say is like, well, thank you. Then the other volunteers coming in, seeing their passion and their love, and you just like, why? Gratitude. Why do I get to experience this? And then surprises. I'll give you this story. It's a crazy surprise. So I wanted to start an internship program. So long story short, it built into, at the diocese for the summer, 4 seminarians and 2 ex-felons for the whole summer. And you probably saw the guys.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Yeah. So all of a sudden I get these seminarians all summer, and they're funny, they're young, they love God, and it's a blessing. So one summer, I never liked Latin in Mass, because in my mind, the churches that do Latin, they're more holier than the churches that don't. And that's my own issue, So, I have issues, But so it's just subtle. Didn't like Latin, didn't ever tell anybody, but it's my own little thing, So one time we have our new seminarians coming in. They come in, they have a Mass for them at the diocese. And in the back, we have a Mass just when they get there. And they do some Latin song at Mass. And I guess I made a mental note. I didn't know it. So I have the 4 seminaries in this 4th Avenue jail, which is a high security county jail. Killers in there, and the chapel's big as like 2 bathrooms. It's small. So we come in, it's our first time there. And I said, hey, you guys come here. Why don't you sing that one Latin song that you sang at Mass? And first of all, why would I say that? I don't know, And they're all of a sudden they look at me like, why are you asking us this? They didn't say that, but so they got in a huddle for a minute. So they kind of got themselves together, come up with a plan. I think it's like Tanto Marigo. Is that, did I say it right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, and there's about 8 inmates, again, older guys, been in and out of prison. You could tell tattoos, gangstered out, and they do it. And all of a sudden they're done. You could have heard a pin drop. And the guys look at me, the prisoners, and we both look at each other like, what just happened? That was powerful. So I was messed up because I had tears in my eyes. The guys were messed up, so I'm confused, Whoa. So then from then on, I started having them do it, and we got the same reaction from the inmates. So I tell Father Paul, he's in charge of them. I'm at lunch, I tell him, yeah, I didn't like Latin. Because at first he's like looking at me like, you're at the diocese, you shouldn't be saying that. And I tell him the story. And I said, Father, here's how I can just explain it. And it just came to me right then. It's like if you go into a flower shop and there's tons of flowers, you're like, well, that's nice, it's beautiful, but there's tons of them. That's kind of how our faith is. We got the rosary, we got the Mass, we got all these beautiful things, but there's a whole bunch. We got Latin. So say you go into that flower shop, take a bouquet out, and you go put it in a dirty alley. You say, then all of a sudden you're in the alley, you're walking down the alley, you see those flowers. Whoa, those flowers are beautiful. But in the flower shop, you didn't recognize them. So for me, I had to get the Latin out of the church and put it in the alley. And once it was in the alley, so to speak, man, it was beautiful. And the inmates.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, they didn't even ask what it meant because they didn't need to.
Yeah.
And then we even did it in the hood. We were at a drug house. Because I would take the seminaries and just to a place where guys got high, and they knew me. They're glad to see me. And they're used to me bringing people, hey, what's up, Father? They would call him Father because they had to, So we're sitting there. Guys are drinking, smoking weed, and we're getting ready to leave. We've been there for a while. And then this older guy comes up. They call him OG. He's from the neighborhood. Hey, what's up, Pastor? Hey, we're going to pray. Oh, yeah, let's pray. And I said, hey, you guys want to do the Tanto Marigo? By then, they're, okay, yeah, they're used to it. So they do it right there in the hood. And when we're done, OG, he's like, damn, kid. He starts cussing. That was effing beautiful, man. Damn, that messed me up, bro. Man. So that was just a gift
power
that God gave me and the inmates. And it was just, it came, what Hanning's?
The Conspiracy of Grace.
It just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, powerful. So when I retired, we had a bunch of seminarians that were there, and I said, and I kind of told that story a little bit to the bishops were there, and the seminarians came up. There were about 15 of them, and we gathered around. My wife was there, and some of the homies were there, and they sang at the retirement, that, and it was just a gift out of nowhere. And the inmates loved it. I loved it. So God would do things like that, just random. The Mary converting the inmate, and we got to be part of that. The Latin coming into the prison in the hood, we got to be part of that. It's a very ecumenical ministry. If it wasn't for a lot of my Protestant brothers and sisters, they poured into me. Poured into me. They said, man, and they loved on me, poured into me, so encouraged me. So it's a very ecumenical ministry. So
yeah, talk a little bit about the Kolbe Mission, because specifically on that topic of like the Protestants. Yeah. There's a lot of Protestant resources around prison, not just prison ministry, but then also like guys getting out. Guys getting out of prison. The families of guys who are in prison. Like there's prison ministry is not just walking through the doors of the jail. It extends to a whole community. It extends into the future and the lives that these guys. Talk about the Kolbe Mission and tell people where they can find it and support it too.
So over all the years, part of prison ministry, guys need to rehab, and there wasn't a focus. Call this place. Call that place. Go here, go there. And is all Protestant or secular rehabs, drug rehabs. And we're grateful. We didn't think anything about it because we weren't involved. You would just send them there. Then one time an inmate said, I want to go to a Catholic rehab when I get out because I'm addicted to drug rehab. I said, well, you can't. We don't have any. And he got mad at me. He goes, what do you mean there's no Catholic drug rehabs? That's ridiculous. Big as the Catholic Church is. And he just went off. I felt like a kid. I went, I didn't know what to do. I was getting scolded by an inmate, and because I worked for the diocese, he felt I had this lot of power.
Right.
So that kind of planted a seed. So I put a small group of guys to pray about it, about Catholic drug rehab. And then I was in Bishop Olmsted's office like a week later, and I had just mentioned to it randomly, because we weren't even there for that. He said, Kevin, there's one in Alabama and Florida, my brother bishops that I'm really close with. It's in their diocese, you ought to go visit it. Long story short, the 4 or 5 of us guys went out there like a month later. They told us, come on out. It was right outside of Birmingham, a house for like 25 guys outside the city. They worked the land, they did 12-step stuff, but they did the rosary, they had mass, adoration. It was just beautiful. And it was a rehab. Man, we're in heaven. We visited them for like 3 days. So we came back and Bishop's like, try to start something here. I said, well, yeah, but at the end of the day, we figured out we had to start our own nonprofit, but we're all still working full time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So long story short, we got our own nonprofit. We called it Kolbe Mission after Father Maximilian Kolbe, who gave his life at Auschwitz for another inmate, and he's a patron saint of prisoners and drug addicts. So basically, where he was able to raise, a little over 100,000 without tons of effort. I'm retired now, so now it's like we need to really push forward because we haven't been able to open up a home yet because you need, close to $1 million to get a home and so on and so forth. So we're excited about it. We're thinking about hiring a director of development, so somebody that can do it, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. But basically, it's a home where you would stay there for a year and recover from addiction. It could be pornography, alcoholism, and do it through Catholic spirituality, but also 12 steps, trauma-informed, care. So, and part of me is like, man, this is a lot. But then thinking that there's not, I get calls all the time. I want to go to a Catholic one.
Right.
Well, you can't, brother. Unless you can go to,
Yep.
So that really, and that's part of it. We just want to be part of the solution in that area, and we're not. I mean, the Catholic Church does so much, as we know.
Of course.
But in that area, we just, for whatever reason, we're not, so.
That's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, huge, especially nowadays with, middle-class America is now addicted, whereas before that wasn't as much, with the opioids and it's a massive need. And it's been a need, but it's a massive need. So we're working on, raising funds, and we have a website, KolbeMission.com.
Okay, so Kolbe.
Kolbe.
Like Maximilian Kolbe.
Yeah, KolbeMission.com.
Okay.
And it explains, ways you can support us. And but we're excited about it. It's a lot. But we're believing God's heart, that He desires for us to do it. We want to do it, but it's going to take an effort of a lot of people. So.
Well, there's people out there that I think are gonna answer that call, because when I'm sure you've had this experience just in prison ministry in general. There are some people that don't know what they're supposed to give or where they're supposed to serve or what they're supposed to do until they get introduced to something like that, and then all of a sudden they're like, "That's it.
That's it.
That's the thing.
That's
yep,
it.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah."
And it's tough. It wakes me up at night sometimes because I want to do it, but I think if we hire this person that's their gift to really, and then we'll be there as a board to support them. We put on luncheons and we met with guys and we were able to raise some money, but we need somebody that's their gift. And then us as a board and myself, because I'm retired now, can support them and, Yeah,
awesome. All right, KolbeMission.com.
Yes.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
in terms of, you've done this ministry for 30 years. Your wife Sylvia's been involved too. That forms kind of part of your family context then as well. Like just, from your kids' perspective, what do you see in your kids that is kind of part of them? Just because this is the life of the Stars family. This is normal for you guys. Because I think a lot of people would be like, yeah, it's probably a good thing to do, but if you got kids, you can't be around that kind of stuff. But
yeah, well, for us it wasn't an everyday thing with the kids. But when we would take the kids to Disneyland in California in retreats for the our kids would come along, or we had Christmas at our house. So about 50 kids from the hood that we worked real close with would come to the house. So they were brought into it, but more, it wasn't like on a regular basis. And so the kids got to know them to some degree. But then they would see guys get out of prison and they'd come to the house and visit. And it's guys that I knew. I just wouldn't invite any random guys that we knew over the years. And so it was kind of a natural fit, and again, it was kids that were raised up in the ministry that they got to know and we knew. So it was more like familiar, like family, so Angel was 5 when my son was 5. Now Angel's 26 and my son's 26. So they saw each other enough, like, hey, what's up, and it was more of just a natural, sporadic thing. But over the years, it you do say something 4 or 5 times a year, times 10 years, that's 50 encounters, or. So it was more, and I think it gave him a heart for people that suffer. Then my own adopted kids, they came out of that, even though they were very young, so, and then my biological son, when they were little, I would take them, we'd get a wagon and we'd get a bunch of lunches and waters. And when they were little, and we'd walk downtown Phoenix and pass out bags of food to the homeless. We just do that on our own. We do that like 2-3 times a year. So they were kind of used to, then with the prison ministry, it was more, then they would hear the stories and they'd be like, man, the stories of their lives, how they grew up. And then, I'd take them once in a while to the house and they'd see, so it just made them, I think, more understanding and compassionate, But one thing I never wanted to be was that dad that took care of people out there but ignored his home. And I was very, very intentional that my first ministry is my wife and my children. And then I could take care of, And it was kind of neat, at my retirement, a couple of guys got up and spoke, inmates and stuff. My son was there, my biological son. And he got up and took the mic, and he wasn't on the agenda. And he said, I just want you to know that, like my dad is out there, he's like that at home. And that was, and I knew that because, I poured in at home and I loved doing it, both my wife and I. But for him to say that was like, because, you hate to be that dad that, they said, oh, your dad's great. Oh, well, hell, you don't live with him,
right.
Right. So, but, so my wife and I were both very intentional about pouring into our kids, but also saying, hey, we have a responsibility for other people too, not to forget them. So and even now, my 2 sons they're growing into the faith after a while for not being into it, and they just have this, I think, watching us trying to, see, enter into the lives of the suffering. I think it's helped them. But also, so just, it's all grace, man.
Amen. So, Kevin, and maybe we'll wrap up on this, because you've been generous with your time, and I love this conversation. I love hearing about all this stuff. But if there's someone watching, and maybe just kind of listen to what you're describing, they've got that little tug, like, I never prison ministry. Like, I never thought about that, but maybe. But they've got a little bit of fear, a little bit. What would you say to someone who maybe is thinking about it, or maybe for the first time, but they've still kind of got like I don't have anything in common with someone who grew up like that. My parents are married for 50 years, and we always had a roof over our heads. Just you've been through, and you've worked with people like that who came in.
And that's a great question. Well, first of all, that's why, say like at the diocese or any diocese, that's why you have an office of prison ministry, and they literally survive off of volunteers. Without volunteers, there's no prison ministry, because one person can't cover all these jails and prisons. Yeah. And in one jail, it's like 5 different places that need to be seen in one little jail. So you need those people that you're talking about. And what happens is somebody has that little tug, but they don't know what to do with it. Then you call your local diocese, and sometimes you got to call around, depending on the diocese, and you get an interview. Hey, I'm interested, but I know nothing. My parents were married 50 years. I had a pretty good life, but it's tugging at me. And that they'll help you navigate to get in. But I think you need a couple of things. One is to really love God, and understand that your relationship with Him is really important. So you're grounded in that. And that's probably what's tugging at you, the gospel, to visit those. And then you just have a certain humility that I'm just there to bring the gospel. And the good thing about our faith, you bring the gospel, literally the gospel for the week in, and you just kind of grow into it. At first you go and you're not sure, and you might look online of what Bishop Barron say about this gospel for the week, so you go in. But at the end of the day, the inmates are like this. I can't believe you are coming to see us, and you don't even know it. You do not have to be here. And right away, you sense their gratitude as a volunteer. So you go in at first, okay, and then they're like, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. So right away, you're like, oh, wow. So you see their gratitude. So you're able to just kind of bring the gospel. And some people, that's all they do. They don't visit them one-on-one. They don't do like we do. We do tons of work on the outs, and that's not for everybody. But without the person going into doing that communion service, what we call it, there would be no prison ministry. And that's huge. And all they need to know is, so what, you had a background so different from them. If anything, that's even beautiful. You're like a regular just Joe, and you're coming in here. Damn, that's really cool. Wow, that's even more respect. More respect. And then and then that's why most of our volunteers, they fall in love with it, because they feel the gratitude, and they're like, wow. And that's one thing I used to like, see a volunteer 5 years later, because once they're going, you just see them once in a while, the volunteers, and you see, wow, you're 5 years in. Wow, and you just see that they're like, man, I hope they get something out of as much as I get out of it. And you bring the gospel and you share it. And so that's why you have these agencies like the diocese, wherever, say if you lived in San Diego, you get a hold of the diocese. And sometimes it's not that easy because they're low staffed and you have to call a few times. But if you're really serious, you'll keep at it, and eventually you'll get your interview, and you'll get in. And
once you're in, you'll figure out why you were supposed to do it.
And they have, like for us, you could do once a month. That's the least you can do. And some people did it once a month, but they did it for years. Some people do it every other week, every other Monday. And some people do it once a week. So if you can't do it once a week, you can do it twice a week, or you can do it once a month. So, and that helps. It's a little something for everybody. And, so, because everybody's schedule is different. And a lot of our people are retired because it's easier.
Well, Kevin, first of all, thanks for stopping by and taking time to share your story and your ministry, and KolbeMission.com. Make sure people know the website, go visit it, get some support going there. But thanks too for doing that for 30 years. Thanks for being part of Matthew 25 gospel, as they say. You know, I was in prison, you visited me.
Yeah. You know, and I'm just grateful for the Bishop Olmsteds, the Bishop O'Briens, the Bishop Dolan, you know, being under them for all those years, you know. One last funny story, and I'll just tell you. Bishop Olmsted's brand new, very conservative. We're at the diocese for our Christmas lunch. Very formal. He's brand new. So everybody's on their, you know, good behavior. And he prays and he says, whatever table makes them the most noise could eat first. And that's not even like him.
Right.
You know, at a formal thing, they haven't even, of course, nobody says anything, you know. So I don't know what got into me, Steve. I stand up on my chair and I go, and the whole place is like, then I sit down and Bishop Olmsted says, okay, I guess that table will eat first. You know? And then after that, I think, oh my gosh, he doesn't know me. He's going to think.
Everyone's like, it was nice working with you, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I thought from now on, every time you see him, you better act like the opposite of that. So for a while, I'd be, hello, Bishop, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. So I'm at a men's conference, you know, about 3 months later, Diocese of Men's Conference. The bishop's there out walking around. And I have a couple of my prison guys with me, you know. Oh, Bishop, this is so-and-so and so-and-so. He goes, oh. And he grabs my shoulder. He goes, you guys are with the wild man, huh? But he allowed me to be myself.
Yeah.
And
he had a gift for that.
He had a gift of, you know, challenging you to grow, but also to be yourself. And he would always pull me aside and say, I like the way you do things. You know, and I thought, which would catch me off guard a little bit because, you know, like, really?
Who's he been talking to?
Yeah, you okay? You know, because he's more, but in his own way, he was a huge supporter of me.
Yeah.
And it was gradually over the years, but he would just at times just tell me. Because my wife and I he would go to prison every Christmas and Easter, and my job was to get him in different facilities. And once in a while, my wife and I went with him at Easter. So he got to kind of see me in action, and he was very, very affirming. Yeah. And for that, you're grateful. Deacon Murphy. So I had people within the diocese that really affirmed me, and for that, I'm grateful.
Yeah. Well, you're part of the legacy of that ministry, so praise God for that. All right. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, man. This is awesome. Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.